My Life Between Lives story from Newton Train Institute practitioners.
I see a whole change in the thrust of searching for answers about who we are and why we're here. And I think it's wonderful, and I just hope the movement continues to expand.
Let us expand the universal consciousness together with a My Life Between Lives story presented by the Michael Newton Institute.
Welcome to My LBL Story. My name is Ekomananda. I am your host. Today we have special guest, Tonya Swan. Tonya specializes in past life and life between lives regression hypnotherapy. Author of Heaven and Earth, How It All Works. She has explored the spiritual realm over 350 times at the age of 11. Tonya conducts classes on the afterlife and shares her experiences via podcasts and radio shows. She also teaches intuition development and Reiki, leveraging her health professional background since 1975. Her expertise includes hypnotherapy, biofeedback, brainwave meditation, and Reiki. She now offers services in Issaquah, Washington, servicing clients in person and remotely. A big warm welcome to Tonya.
Thank you so much for welcoming me. I'm so grateful to be here.
We are so grateful for you to share that intimate experience, and you've gone just that a year 350 times, and does that exhaust the body?
Yes, it could have, but it didn't. I felt fine. And there were so many wonderful lessons that I was given to help me to learn to do what you're saying, to be able to try and embody being like them, because that's why we do what we do. We look at them and when they're in the spirit, those who have gone before us, and we want to be like that. They're so beautiful. They're so loving. We just want to be like that too. And so my teacher would do a lot of things to help me to learn to do that. One thing he would do is what I would call looking back. He would tell me to, when I would get embroiled in something, I could hear him say, step back. And what he meant by that was to pull my energy out of the situation that was more of a negative situation, and to step back into my soul energy and look at it from a soul perspective and interact with the person from that level, and don't interact on that human level that they're pulling me to.
Step back.
Step back. And so sometimes I would be starting into something, I could hear him yell, step back. He would almost startles me sometimes. But then I would remember to go back into that spiritual place and to have this interaction from that spiritual place and not from that just physical. The other one he would give me is he would always show me this iceberg, and he'd go, this is the tip, this is the tip, this is what you're seeing of this person that you're having this issue with. Remember, all that's below there, this big part down here, this is all they've been through. You're seeing the tip. You're only seeing the pain that's resulting from what they have been through. You must have compassion for all they have been through, and then you will have no trouble with the little tip of energy you're handling right now.
Oh, that's beautiful. We're only seeing the tip. We actually don't know the entire story of what people are going through. That's
what he was saying. To remember all that they've been through. And he had showed me many times, like I asked him questions. I remember one about, there was a man that lived next door to us at the time, and he was really angry. He was always angry. Every time I saw him, he was angry. And I thought, I've never done anything to him. Why is he angry at me? And so I asked my teacher, I said, why is this man so angry? And he showed me his lives. He just threw them out like scattered stars, and I could see them all at once. And all the things that had happened to him had made him bitter and angry, and he hadn't gotten over them. And that's why he was feeling that way. So when I saw the man from then on, I remembered what my teacher said, and I tried to have compassion for his suffering. And when I did that, he opened up to me and he started to talk to me and befriended me. And it was really good for him.
We share love with others. It absorbs other people's sadness, trauma, all of this unhealed energy stored within the body. I always, attempt, if I may say so, and to share this lesson. Only love heals.
Yes, that was what they showed me repeatedly in so many different ways.
And from that year, total transformation. Apart from your sister, did your mother or father or other people were aware of this?
Not that I know of. I know that my grandfather saw things, elemental things in his garden, and people thought he was crazy. I didn't think he was crazy. I figured they were probably real. I'd never seen them, but why not? Why wouldn't there be fairies and gnomes in your garden? I was now aware that there were angels and masters and teachers and all these other beings in another realm, so I figured he could be perfectly fine. My sister was born seeing auras and seeing the other side. She saw the world as both, which was very stressful for her because she saw all the darkness. Like if she looked at a person, she could see everything they ever did in this life. And it was really hard for her to see all of that. And she could see dark energies and light energies. And it was hard for her to see the dark energies. And eventually it caused her to go crazy. She actually did lose her mind.
I'm sorry to hear about that. We send her love and wish that wherever she is, perhaps the spirit has a plan to experience, however the body we may experience suffering, struggle from moment to moment, time to time. However much we meditate, I feel like so long that we have a body, we live in a mundane life, we still encounter this sadness, trauma, pain in the bodily journey. And we just love one another to the best capacity as we can, help as much as we can.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I agree.
I
agree. And with my sister, it's interesting now that I've been able to do the hypnosis work, we were able to take me to talk to her in her soul body. And she explained to me that she had been dependent on me for many lifetimes and that this was her lifetime. She had to be on her own. And that's why she created the situation for her higher good. And I said, okay, I understand. I'll see you when it's over.
Wow.
And that really helped me to let go because before that, I just was so sad. But now I'm happy for her accomplishing her goal.
Yes. It reminds me my own story. My brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He had a out-of-body experiences that I did not know. Once he said he was out of body for 15 days. I'm like thinking, what? And this story only was told to me when I began walk on my spiritual path, became a spiritual healer. And he knew that only I physically in this body, in this world, in his environment, there was no one who could explain anything like spiritual information, knowledge, and share with him. So he knew instinctively he could come to me. I could hold space for him. I had no idea. That was 2 years when into my spiritual journey. And I just sat there silently and just comforted her. Because he had many moments he just wanted to kill himself, and he pulled that over. And so I have been very proud of him. And he had a 10 years gambling journey, and that was very, very hard for him and for all of us. And I was not spiritual before I walk on my path today. We just kept on supporting him, money. because that's what all he was after. And it cost the entire family's fortune, everybody's down to zero because of that journey. And now walking on the spiritual path, it felt such a blessing. However, it looks like it's a painful journey, and him, by having that habit, bad habit, gambling, or it's habits, not a bad habit, it's just an experience that pushed me to go on further on my spiritual journey, and and I had to learn my relationship with money, let go. That's part of it. There are different layers of the lesson, and it's really such a blessing when your family member or whoever, even that, including people we don't know, that they are struggling. They may be the perpetrator as well, and there's stories behind. We truly don't know what exactly the lesson might be unless we begin to do this sort of work. Such a
It's
blessing.
so true. It's such a blessing that we can go and look and find out why, because understanding why makes all the difference for people. And a lot of times just understanding it helps them to just heal it. I've seen that a lot in my practice. There's so many people that they've had things and they didn't know why they had them. And once they understood it, it just disappears. They don't need it anymore. Or they understand that they do need it and this is their path. And just understanding that, yes, there's a purpose to it. It's not just random. We don't just have something.
Yes, it's everything's got a reason or a purpose behind it for what we see the story.
Yes. And similar to yours, one of my recent clients was having really bad anxiety. And on my 1 to 10 scale, he was a 10 plus. And it was affecting him severely in his family and his work. And we did some work with looking at the whys through the LBL process. And he was able to see from understanding from his guide that this was for him to not get lost in the world, because he's a deeply spiritual person and he was going on a path that was totally materialistic. And this was a way to pull him back and bring him back to searching in his soul to find the answers and to find himself again. And he was a deeply, deeply spiritual person, having had some incredible experiences with ascended masters. And so that gave him a feeling of gratitude for having this anxiety. And it really did help his healing. He's now sitting at a 3.5 on my 1 to 10 scale. And this is only a few months ago. So he's getting better and better as he works his life around in a new way.
How amazing. Now, from your 11 years old experiences to when you were 18, you began to have this health crisis, and which led you to become a health professional working in that field. How do you connect the purpose behind everything that happened since the age of 11?
For me, I've always been a healer. My mother used to tell me that I would go in the hospital and talk to the doctors and nurses like I knew them. And I did. I felt like I've already known these people. And the explanation for that is that when I was in the spirit realm, I got to see that I'm in a group of healers. So there's a group of 5 of us that work together, and we bring healing of different, more, I don't want to say advanced, but the new age of healing to the planet. It's been here before, but we bring it back. So that's the mission of our group, and that's called a mission group. And I have had the pleasure of meeting all of my mission group in this life. And they are all doing wonderful work. I'm so proud of them. And so that's been something that I've always been on a path of. It's something I teach when I'm out of my body. And when I'm working in the spirit realm, my job is to help people when they come back from trauma. And so I do a lot of that in my work here in the physical. So they go together. And all of the spiritual is just to help me to understand that there's more to life. It's not just about the physical body. I need to look at the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. All of those are important. And I can't be looking at just one, because it usually is predominantly in 1 or 2. And if I'm looking at say it's a physical problem, I think, and I'm looking only at the physical, but it's really an emotional problem, I'm not going to help them. I can do all the physical things I want and it won't work. But if I address the emotional, the physical can go out as well as the emotional. So just finding where it's from. And from a spiritual vantage point of talking with the guides and talking with the council and with the soul group and others up in the spirit realm, we can find out more about it so that we can know what's the purpose. And then we can go in a different direction to help heal it physically if we need to, or just understanding it maybe will heal it.
So from your expertise and the physical illness, this pain or conditions, diagnosis, what is your approach to cure them?
It just depends on the person. I really tailor things to that person. And I use muscle testing, AK work. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I use that and my intuition to decide where to go. And intuitively, I can be looking at a whole page full of stuff that they've written to me, and something will go zoom. My eyes will go right to where I feel I need to go. And I'll start exploring that, and that turns out usually to be the problem. And it's an exploratory journey because sometimes you go towards that one, but there's another piece. And so you work on that part, and then there's this other piece, then you go to that and work on that part. So it's not always one thing, but can be several. And it's a lot about what they need to learn. And this is their journey to learn it and assisting them in getting that. And so I'm really their assistant in their path of exploration. It's not something that I do. But sometimes healing it just blows my mind. And I know that, from my teacher that things are energy. It's not physical. But then I live in this physical world and I look at this desk and I go, it seems really very physical to me. So it's hard sometimes to remember, but I've had experiences that have just told me that that's not the truth. I remember when I was working with Reiki, and I had worked with this gal with a lot of different things. She had gone from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane, and she was doing really, really well. And then she had a carotid artery break, which means the carotid artery, your major artery here, broke open and she was bleeding out. And they rushed her to the hospital, and the doctor said she won't last until morning. And the family called me because I had been working with them for a very long time, and they would become friends too. And they said, we know that she would want you to be here to say goodbye. She's unconscious, but please come and say goodbye. And so I came to the room, and I sat across the bed from her on the other side where the family was right by the door. There was a bed, and then we were on the other side. And her sister was sitting next to me. And I remembered that her sister was a Reiki master. And I said to her, just out of compassion, these people, her relatives, they are suffering so much. They are so distraught. Why don't we do some Reiki for them? And so we began to run the Reiki, but the Reiki was having nothing to do with going to them. It went straight for her neck. And I could see this picture in my mind of a tube with a hole, and a thing would go over the hole. And it would do the same thing again over and over. I would see the tube, I would see a hole and something going over the hole. And I was thinking to my mind, that's impossible. That can't happen. But I thought what my Reiki teacher told me, you must stay out of the way. You let the Reiki do what the Reiki does. You are not the healer. It is the infinite is the healer. And so I just kept running the energy until it felt like it was time to stop, when it slowed down, and it was about an hour and a half. And I said goodbye to everybody, and I left and went home. The next morning, I got a phone call, and her nephew says, I know what you think I'm going to say, but I'm not going to say that. That thing sealed itself over, and she's fine. And she's alive today.
Amazing.
I know, but things like that, you just go, how is it possible? But it is. Energy is real.
Well, energy has no limit, has no physical material boundary, and that's what I say to clients. I said Zoom is perfectly fine. It's actually easier. You don't have to travel, and recording is easier, and there's tons of benefit. Just do it at your home in your comfortable, familiar environment and receive healing from the infinite love.
That's very true. And that's the one thing I love about Reiki, because you can do it from anywhere. I remember working on my mother-in-law. She had a stroke and she was way far away. She was way down in Oregon, and we live up here in Washington. And I was like, well, I need to help her. And my husband was like, you have to do something. I was like, okay. So I put myself in a very deep trance, and I went to her bedside, and I was there in spirit and began to run Reiki on her. She didn't know I was doing it first, but then she kind of figured it out, and she started helping me. And I was really amazed that this woman, who I didn't have any idea had this spiritual side of her, was a very powerful spiritual being. And so together we worked on her, and it was only on her left big toe. The Reiki would go nowhere else but her left big toe. And we worked on it for, I don't know, an hour or so. And then the energy slowed down, and I left. And during this time, we had a conversation. I said to her on the inner, your son wants you to stay. She said, I don't want to stay. I'm done here. And I said, well, what about your children? She said, no, they do not need me. I'm done. And I said, what about your husband? No. And then I thought, what could I say to her that might make her want to stay? All in accordance with God's holy will, I always say that. So I said to her, if you stay, your husband, who has never lifted a finger in the house, he only works in the yard and does the men's work, but he's never cooked a meal. He's never taken care of anyone. He would grow a tremendous amount if he had to take care of you. She said, I'll stay. And she got better, and he had to take care of her, and he did change. He did change tremendously. And then later on, she was leaving again, about 2 years later. And I came to her again. And she said, oh, no, no, no. And I said, no, I'm not here to convince you to stay. I'm here to help you go home.
Wow, that's such a touching story, and it has so much wisdom in your story that each person's journey has its own time. Has
Yes.
a reason to stay, a reason to go, and when to go. If you're ready to go, if you finish your lesson, or if you're not, then there's always meanings behind these stories.
Yeah, so beautiful. And then eventually he passed over too, and I did see them together one day when I was walking. So beautiful, they're together in spirit.
Yes, beautiful stories. And so from that 11 years old experience, I feel like I'm in that world with that story in it. And from the moment that you were telling me that story, and did St. Francis predominantly teaches you healing method or other stuff as well?
Not so much healing methods. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me that life was a continuum and about past lives. And he let me play with this really fascinating machine, which I've not really heard anybody talk about. It was like a big video screen. And you could sit in front of it, and you could put up your life now or another life, and you could play with that. So you could say, go back to when you had made a decision and done something with your life, and go back to that juncture and change it. And then you could see how the life would play out if you had done that. And so you could try on different scenarios.
I've heard of this technique. I can't remember some name. Maybe I'll find out a technique name and share with you later. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our next episode.